Come on. There we go. Come on. Okay. Cool. Gonna pop out the chat. Kick out the jams. Okay. Think we got all of that ready. Cool. Neat. All right. And there we go. Hey, folks. Happy Sunday, unless it's already Monday for you. Just a quick note. The overall topic of this particular live show is going to be, I'm looking for new topics for videos, whether it's for Sunday shows or more likely for Friday shows. So if you have a topic idea, there's a little note down here at the bottom that says, if you just start your comment with the topic idea you have, put in the word topic, preferably in all caps, then when I go back through to look at the comments and stuff, it'll be easier for me to find. So I appreciate that. Let me see here. What do we got? Tampa, Florida. We've got the UK. We've got Clearwater, Florida. Morning from the land of cults, salt, and mountains. I know where that is. Tinley Park. How you doing? Virginia. Let's see here. Cincinnati. Joseph, how you doing? Hamilton, Ontario. Voltaire, Italy. How you doing? Winnipeg, Manitoba. John Ashley Smith, how you doing? Corpus Christi, Texas. Chilliwack, BC. Columbus, Ohio. Kent, England. Yukon, Oklahoma. Southern Arizona. Washington, D.C. Hope you're doing well. France. Got a little hedgehog there. That's fun. Let's see here. What else we got? Jonesboro, Illinois. Surprisingly cold Southern California. It's not too bad here today. It's supposed to be in the low 70s, I think. And it's currently sunny. Normal, Illinois. Halifax. Good sunny morning from the mitten. Yeah. Lexington, Kentucky. Quebec. Enjoyed Friday's video. Well, thanks. You're one of the dozens who watched it, so I appreciate that. Is this a new microphone? I mean, new within the last year plus, I think. But yeah, I've had it for a while. It's a Beacon mic, and it's pretty nice. I've been liking it. Let me see here. Afternoon from Puckle Church. That's a lot of fun to say. Good evening from the Philippines. Entered a speed painting contest, won 3rd place. Well, that's pretty cool. Congrats. West Virginia, Italy, Cleveland, Surrey, the UK. Please do a video on what kinds of brushes to use. Technically, we've done one of those. Me and Sam did we did a video about brushes, actually, several years back, actually. I think pre-pandemic. Let's see here. Halifax, Nova Scotia, Peru. Incorporating your other hobbies into tabletop wargaming, example, comics, monsters, movies. Yeah, I think I've talked about, like, getting terrain ideas from video games. I've talked about that. That's in the same area a little bit, but it's not a bad idea. Saskatchewan, that's always a fun to say. Stoke-on-Trent. New York. Florida. Pollen-filled Milwaukee. Yeah, it's been a little polleny up here, too. Barcelona. How about an occasional review of miniatures such as those from smaller creators? I would gladly volunteer as tribute. I don't do a lot of reviews on the channel, you've probably noticed. I have that series where I talk about why I like it, where I talk about specific things. It's mostly been games, but I have talked about some other things as well. But in general, I don't do a lot of reviews. I don't know. It might not be a bad idea to do some. I've kicked around the idea of doing some roundups. So like, here's several models that I think are cool from different 3D what do you call them? I don't know, not 3D printer people, but you know what I'm saying. 3D sculptors is the word I'm looking for. But it's an idea, yeah. Let's see here. Orange County, California, Sweden, Knoxville, Kentucky, Edinburgh. Wet blending techniques. Yeah, we've done some of that as well. Again, those are Sam videos. Painting with the Pro. I think there's a playlist of Painting with the Pro videos on the channel, and there's one of wet blending. I know he was painting the skeletons from the what the heck are they called? The Sepulchral Guard. That's it, from the original Shadespire set for Warhammer Underworlds. But it's not a bad idea to head back into it. You know what I mean? Bavaria, Portugal. Maybe talk about how great and modest I am. I mean, you know, that I could see that being a video. Greenville. So you want to run a tournament? What would you do to organize and foster decent play environment? That would be a hard one. I'd have to talk to somebody who is smart, because I've never run. Well, I take that back. I helped a friend of mine run a tournament one time, and I don't know that I was good at it. Again, we just did it the one time. So, but yeah, it's one of those things where I would like to talk to somebody about that kind of thing. Maybe, you know, and I'm not Rue, Ontario, Australia, New York City, Boston. Let's see here. Tampa, Florida. Calgary. Texas. Looking to start a home campaign of Mordheim. Any ideas for bulk fantasy scatter terrain for cities? If you either have a friend who has a 3D printer or you specifically yourself have a 3D printer, I would take a look at My Mini Factory, and I bet you'll find some stuff like that would be useful. Some files that you could get printed. Second possibility is to hit up Etsy, honestly. Because I bet you'll find stuff there too. If you typed in like Mordheim scatter terrain, I bet you'd find stuff that would pop up. Where drives you to continue with this admittedly mostly solitary hobby? Where you draw your hobby mojo from? What sources inspire you at least? It's not a bad topic, yeah. Argentina, how you doing? Cambridge, UK. St. Louis. Let's see here. How to approach learning and getting into a new game. Yeah. Eastern Connecticut. Newcastle. Would love a topic on a full kill team or combat patrol project start to finish. Well, I've been working on combat patrol on Twitch. You folks might sometimes watch me over there. I'm on Monday nights at 7 p.m. Central Time for 3 hours, and on Friday mornings at 10 a.m. Central for 3 hours. And lately I have been painting the Deathwatch box. I've finished up the 10 intercessors that are in that box, and I am currently working on 3 aggressors, an apothecary, and a Primaris lieutenant. And then that's the rest of the box done. And my hope is to eventually do, well, a bunch more. Imperial Guard, Blood Angels. I'm hoping to do the Combat Patrol, or maybe even both Combat Patrols eventually, that are going to be coming in Leviathan. So that's going to be pretty cool. The one for the Space Marines is like literally only 12 models, which is neat. Let's see here. I'm so glad I can watch this episode live this time. I really needed this kind of light in a dark place I'm in now. Well, I'm glad to hear where you're able to watch. I appreciate it. And I hope it helps. How to wet blend and when to use it. Interesting. People got questions about wet blending. I almost never wet blend. The only time I ever wet blend is sometimes on bases, but it's kind of rare. Or sometimes if I'm feeling saucy and I'm working on a big shield, but because I do so much like Zenithal and then put contrast over it, I never find a use for wet blending personally. But if I did a lot more opaque painting, I suppose it would be a different story. But yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't thought of that. Temple Patrick, Northern Ireland. How you doing? Let's see here. Different. Which paints are the tastiest? I could talk to Sam about that. He is more of a brush licker than I am. I am generally not. Morning from Calgary, flying to Ontario to make some videos with Dave from Mini Wargaming. Oh, cool. Dave's a good guy. Just saw him at Adepticon. We chatted for quite a while. Let's see here. Homemade terrain. You may have already done this, but tips and tools if you're putting together stuff from cardboard and styrofoam to other recommended materials. I want to do more terrain videos, specifically this summer. Right now, I am still pretty deep into like the next game that Vince and I are publishing. We have gotten the printed proof back from the printer, and it looks cool. And so we have ordered, excuse me, we've ordered, I don't know, like 50 copies to have at TMX coming up in a couple of weeks. Basically just a little bit less than 2 weeks from today. So that part's done, which is awesome, but there's still a bunch of stuff that has to happen with the actual launch of the game, which will be on June 2nd, in case something terrible happens. But in general, the launch of the new game will be on June 2nd, which is a Friday. But there's some other things that I've got to get done that we're going to hopefully have as add-ons and things like that, which I'm working on. And then, of course, there's a bunch of videos that I need to make. Vince is making a battle report. I'm making like my launch video, plus also another video like how do you play a turn and like, you know, what's the game about and stuff like that. So after the beginning of June, after TMX is done, then I will have fewer things to do, hopefully, which will be good because then I want to shift into doing terrain videos a bit more this summer and stuff like that, because I would like to. I just have a bunch of terrain stuff I want to build, frankly, so there's that too. But yeah. Revisiting old or obscure games that are still worth playing and provide some advice on how to get and print miniatures for them. It's not a bad idea. Drizzly, New Mexico, how you doing? What will happen to our painted miniatures and unpainted when we die? I did a video about not being a hoarder, I think, which is sort of the same. It talked about that kind of stuff a little bit. But yeah, it's a good question. Really getting into the idea that you control your hobby. Paint how you want. Box art be damned. Yeah, no, yeah, that's a good point. Ergonomy? I think I'm saying that right. And solutions to discomforts linked with miniatures painting. I'd have to do a ton of research on that because I suck at that. Like I sit there and I paint, I'm all curled up like a shrimp and it looks weird and it doesn't seem to bother me too much. Like I luckily, knock on wood, don't seem to have too much in the way of like back pain from painting. I know people who get back pain and hand pain and all kinds of stuff like that. And so far, at the age of 51, nearly 52, generally okay. But then again, I generally don't paint more than, like, the longest stretch I have a tendency to go without usually getting up and walking around is usually my Twitch streams, which are about 3 hours. So I'll paint for 3 hours and then, but the thing is that when I'm Twitch streaming, I'm also not as hardcore painting because I'm talking to chat and I'm doing stuff and whatever. Whereas if I was painting straight for 3 hours, but without chat being there, then yeah, I'm all curled up and I'm doing stuff and I'm working on the models real close. Not this close. I can't see them that close, but you know what I mean? Yeah, and that's one of those things that you kind of have to watch out for, and it's a good idea to get up and walk around. So it's not a bad idea. Enlist someone to record some videos from TMX or make a place for folks to post their stuff from the cool game that they played. I usually post some sort of hashtag. The kids, they love the hashtags. But yeah, I usually put up signs that say, hey, if you're going to post stuff, make it. And it'll probably be hashtag TMX 2023 or something like that. So you could watch and pay attention for that stuff. The downside is that 2 weeks from today, which would be the next Every Other Sunday show, will be TMX. Now, you're probably saying, oh, well, good, just do your live show from TMX. Well, I have attempted this 2 or 3 other times. It has never worked. And I do strongly think that the IT department at the university, which is where TMX is held, I think that they've got ports blocked so you can't stream. I don't know, because the internet is stupid fast, like when you hop on the Wi-Fi down to the basement of this building, it is, and you do like one of those little speed tests, it's just like monstrously fast. And I'm like, both up and down. And you're like, awesome, great. And then you try to stream and then it just dies. So I do think that there's some sort of port blocking or something going on. So I haven't like completely figured out what to do in that situation yet. So I'm still trying to figure that out, but something will happen. Either I'll attempt it again and then it'll work great, or I'll attempt it again and it'll fail, and then maybe we'll have to have the TMX, or sorry, have the Every Other Sunday show the next week. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Morning from Southern California. How about different minis from other companies or independent designers that can be used as proxies of the various Warhammer games and factions? Yeah, I mean, like talking about this would be a good replacement for Necrons. This would be a good replacement for, I mean, honestly, One Page Rules has got a lot of that covered to some degree with their 3D printer stuff. But if you're looking for non-3D printing, maybe two videos, one that's like 3D printer edition and one that's non-3D printer edition, something like that. It's not a bad idea. Do not type in Xenomorph and high heels into my mini factory. Ugh, yeah, I know. Yeah, I don't understand. My accumulated hobby works are going to be a boat anchor to my survivors. Well, that'd be good. Lesson on Illustrator for war games. Lesson on Illustrator. You mean like Adobe Illustrator? Or what do you mean? Or how to illustrate? Because I went to school for art, but honestly, it was a lot more about graphic design and photography. I'm not a particularly good drawer. I guess I'm better than average, but not. I mean, when I say average, I don't mean the average artist. I mean the average person. You know what I mean? Do you think you'll have that Ramones-inspired shirt on sale again? Yes, that one will be on the new store when the new store launches. Getting into painting is different now with all the access to information compared to when we started. Probably have already done that one 4 times. I kind of talked about it relatively recently. I did talk about it just recently. I was talking about like how when I first started, there wasn't really much in the way of YouTube. So there were those books. Like GW made like a book about how to paint miniatures and how to make terrain. And I had the terrain one and I loved it. But yeah, I see where you're going on that one. More Warcry videos. Last season release is Nightmare Quest. New starter is coming soon. 8 new warbands until the spring. Any predictions on warbands? Do you prefer 2nd edition to 1st edition? I like 2nd edition. I mean, they're not a ton different, but I do like 2nd edition. It's quite good. I will say that none of the boxes they've released in this past year have really blown my skirt up. They've just all been meh. Like even the Nightmare Quest, I don't know. The terrain in these boxes has just been not stuff that I'm interested in. I'm frankly kind of tired of them sending out, of making these big boxes that are filled with terrain, because then let's say you want the armies that are in them, but you don't need more meat trees. You know what I mean? Well, you still have to buy this box or wait another 3 months. So, and then just buy the armies or something. I don't know. I think that I know why they're doing it this way. It makes them more money. And they're a big corporation and that's what they do. And I get it. But it makes me less interested in the game when when it's all about here's the next big box and 3 months later here's the next big box and you're like, I like these guys, I don't care about any of the rest of this. Well, wait another 3 months. I don't know. That for me is just not particularly interesting to me. So that's why, I mean, honestly, the last time that Sam and I played Warcry, I was using what did I use? I think my Night Haunts, I think. I mean, all the stuff that's come out, like the Lizard Men, or whatever they're called these days. Seraphon? Yeah, the Seraphon. That set, which was maybe 2 or 3 boxes ago, was cool, but I felt like they were slightly underpowered, honestly. Like, I was unimpressed by the stats and everything like that, so it just kind of caused me to not really... I painted like 3 of them just for the video and stuff, and I was like, but honestly, the last several boxes of, especially Nightmare Quest, I don't know. I don't need any more Stormcast ever. I mean, I guess that's personally me, but Topic, Uncle Adam's How to Play 10th Edition Combat Patrol. That might be kind of interesting. 10th Edition changes? Well, I mean, maybe. Again, I think there's people out there who are a lot smarter about that stuff. Like how to play Combat Patrol? Yep, I can do that. But to be like, oh, this is the comparison to Ninth. I've not played a single game of Ninth. I read the book when Ninth came out and was like, I don't know. Like I enjoyed 8th, played a decent amount of 8th. 7th, I didn't particularly enjoy, but I played some early on and then kind of gave up on it. 6th, I played. 5th, that was where I kind of really started in 40K. And Combat Patrol, 5th edition Combat Patrol, that was my thing. So, but yeah, no, 9th just was like, it just didn't stick. Emily, how you doing? Good morning. Hello from Columbus. Finally, the last graduation. Nice. Everything scrolled. There we go. Greetings from Asia. How do you handle the pressure of being the sex symbol of our hobby? It's not a thing, I don't think particularly, but I appreciate it. And howdy to Asia. Whoops. Topic, how to spell check your Chiron. Yeah, no, you're not wrong. The problem is the microphone's in the way. So, and I was doing that little text thingy literally a minute before everything started. So the fact that I forgot the O in the word topic does not surprise me. Let me see if I can fix that. Poke. There we go. And I don't know how to make that. There we go. Okay, cool. Now we got her. All right. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, because even like literally right now, I can't see it. I have to look over the top of my microphone to be able to see it. Hello from the Netherlands. Have been sick in bed all weekend? Well, I hope you get better. I'm glad. I hope that, and I hope this maybe helps a little bit, even a tiny little bit. Has anyone used a color shift paint over a Zenithal Prime instead of a black Prime? There are certain ones that it works really well with. Specifically, and this is the only one that I really have any kind of experience with. There is a color from TurboDork called Twin Suns. And it's not suns like S-U-N-S, like it's not suns like Tatooine. It's suns like male children, right? S-O-N-S, Twin Suns. And it is a blue-green kind of color, and I think it's got something to do with Alfarius and blah, 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 all that kind of jazz. Anywho, most TurboDork paints will say on the bottle whether you should put it over a white or a black undercoat, and it will tell you that right on the bottle. The Twin Suns color specifically says you can put it on over black or white or do a Zenithal. And it does work. I did it on my Tyranids for Kill Team 2018, like the armor plating kind of stuff that they have on them. I went through and I painted it black and then dry brushed it white and then put that stuff over the top of it. And it worked great. Chris Bellew from Way of the Brush, if you look up Way of the Brush on YouTube, he's got a video about painting Alpha Legion using that same color. And he did a Zenithal, and they turned out really cool. But what he realized was instead of going like white highlights to black like undercoat, when he did that, the colors shifted the other direction. Like it didn't look right. So instead he went and he took a model and he painted it white and then shaded it from above with black, which is weird looking, but then when you put the that particular Twin Suns color over the top, it actually turned out pretty cool. It depends on the color. I'll be honest, I've also used some other real light color from them over a Zenithal. That it didn't say to use it over a Zenithal, but when I did, it looked really cool. So it's something to try out for sure. But the undercolor, even more than any other kind of paint, the undercoat that you put underneath color shift paints is actually quite important. So yeah, something to mess with. Blue paint tastes pretty decent. I mean, I don't think it's a good idea. Let's see here. Good morning from Boonville, New York. Looking for advice for painting chests that are behind arms, similar to minis that are carrying weapons, a lot like the Krieg minis. I just generally don't. You know what I mean? Like if you're talking about, like, let's say you're talking about, like, I don't know, Primaris Space Marines, for example. There's some of those out there. They got that big eagle thing on their chest, and then they're carrying a bolt rifle in front of them. I just don't paint them. I figure that if you are a bog standard space marine who's not even like a sergeant or leader of any kind, in my mind, your chest eagles are just molded into the armor, but are not gold leafed or whatever it is they do to make them look different. When you first start out as a Primaris, they don't give you lots of fanciness. You know what I mean? You got that shape is built into your armor, but it's not painted or, again, whatever, appliqued. As you get to become a sergeant or some other kind of leader or whatever, then two things happen. Number one, you have a tendency to not carry a bolt rifle. You have a tendency to carry a sword and a pistol, which means it's way easier to get at your chest for painting. So then, hooray, you are now elevated, and also now I'm going to paint your chest eagle. But the guys who've got their gun in front of it, I just don't generally bother. Like if you take a look at the finished, I haven't posted any good pictures yet, unfortunately, but if you were watching on Twitch, the Primaris Space Marines that I did for my Death Watch, they don't have their chest eagles painted. Now, the 3 aggressors will, because A, they're not covering their chest, eagles, and B, they're aggressors, so they're probably higher level because they've been put into the fancier armor, etc., blah, blah, blah. A lot of it's headcanon, to be perfectly frank with you. But yeah, that's the way I do it. Now, if you're like, but I have to, they absolutely have to be painted, then you have to build them without their guns. You have to have the gun off separately and do sub-assemblies, paint the chest eagle, paint the gun, then glue the gun on, and that's a giant pain in the butt in most of the situations. A lot of the situations, especially if they're push fit, it's nearly impossible. So good luck. But yeah, that's the way I generally do it. I just take the opinion that the regular bog standard Space Marines, they don't have fancy chest eagle accoutrement. It's molded into their armor. It's there, they're covered, I guess, or whatever, but you don't have to paint it if you don't want to. One thing that's been on my mind lately is been how important is the aesthetic of the game versus other aspects of the game, like mechanics. Yeah, I mean, that's not a bad idea either. I think some people are all in on the lore and the aesthetic, and they don't care about the mechanics. And I can't play a game where the mechanics, like there are people out there that are like, I don't really care about the rules. I don't care whether they tweak them or whether they're good or bad. I got to be playing Eldar, or I got to be playing Necrons, or I got to be, because I identify as a Necron, or whatever the deal is in there, or I identify with, not as. I identify with the Necrons. I think that rules matter. Like I'll be honest, there's plenty of games that I like to play because it's a cool game and they're miniatures agnostic. So then I get to make up whatever kind of story and models and whatever it is I want to do. And I like that a lot. But playing a game that's got really super cool models and a cool story and all that kind of stuff, but the rules suck, I'm not interested. It's a big reason why I didn't play, well, one of many reasons why I didn't play 9th edition. I just didn't like the rules. Now, I'm also not generally an army scale person either, so there's that too, but... Good morning from Connecticut. Thanks for all you do for our hobby. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you very much, Eric. Did you know there is a McDonald's in the pocket dimension? Oh, well, there you go, JP Got Rockets. Nice to hear. I just extended the unlimited probability field to a radius of 6 blocks and overlapped the local store just in time for breakfast. I would get a McGriddle. McGriddles are awesome. Topic, Warhammer Old World launch. Do we even know when that's supposed to be? Is that this summer? I've not paid any attention to the Old World stuff because it's never been... I've never been interested in it. Topic, racing games. Racing miniature games? I mean, I know about Gaslands, which is technically kind of a racing game, but it's also about, shooting and smashing and stuff like that. But I haven't thought about that. I don't know. I'm not really familiar, other than Gaslands, not particularly familiar with any other racing games within the miniature sphere. Making custom warband sheets often takes me a full weekend to finalize a single page. Is this common in your experience, or does using the right software really make a difference? Much like painting, I would say it is all about... much like painting, it's about, the more you do it, the faster you get at it. So I've been using software like InDesign, Adobe InDesign, Adobe Illustrator, Adobe Photoshop, that kind of jazz, I've been using Photoshop for more than a quarter of a century. I remember when they went from version 2 to version 2.5. And when they did 2.5, they added in layers. Previous to that, there were no layers in Photoshop. Everything was on one layer. Right. So I've been doing it for a long time. So I'm relatively speedy at it. But yeah, honestly, these days when I'm like looking at making warband sheets for something, I'm more often than not. Well, when you're talking about warband sheets, or you're talking about like this is my army or my warband, and I want to have it all in one sheet, I have a tendency to use Battlescribe. But you know, like I've been using Battlescribe for all my Warcry stuff because it's just way easier. Because it also shows you all the right stuff. All the special rules that you could use potentially with your doubles and your triples and your quads and stuff like that. It takes a look at your list currently and it filters out all the ones you couldn't use. Whereas in the book, it shows you all the possible ones. And you're always like, oh, this one's cool. Oh, wait, I don't have that symbol. I have the skull with the horns, but not the skull with only one horn. Oh, geez, I don't have the right thing. Well, in Battlescribe, it just goes, look, these are the ones that are available to you. So pick one of those. And that's I think, very easy and nice. Time management, how to schedule your hobby. I think I've kind of talked a little bit about that. I talked about setting alarms on your phone so that you could remind yourself to, you know, after dinner or whatever, go and hobby and not just sit there and watch Law and Order reruns. I don't know anybody that does that. Honestly, we haven't watched Law and Order reruns for a long time, but that used to be generally the standard. Let's see here. My Space Marines will be buried with me. They'll carry me to the Golden Throne. Well, that'll be uncomfortable. I found your channel when learning. Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear it. How'd you get such a great beard? It just grew there, I think, is what happened. Was just about to ask about how to play insert Tabletop Minions game here. Well, it's not a Tabletop Minions game. It is Snarling Badger Studios game. The games are me and Vince. So yeah, but the next one, like I said, will be coming out less than 2 weeks. It's coming out on the 2nd of June, Friday, the 2nd of June. We're very much looking forward to you folks getting to see it. Are Kickstarters for games relevant to the gaming industry anymore? That's a topic. I talked about Kickstarters and tabletop gaming, but it was a long time ago. So maybe some sort of relook. Maybe a relook. I don't know if that's the right term or not. Set up a timer and get up and stretch every hour or whatever fits you. Yeah, that's a good idea. I mean, getting up and walking around is a good idea in general. Know when to stop painting. I did talk recently about, I've done a video about know when to quit, which is kind of like, you know when you're like, okay, let's stop messing with this model because otherwise I'm going to screw it up. I mean, that came from college when I was in a painting class. Like I was painting, on a canvas and stuff like that. And I was working on this painting and working on it. And I just was getting it worse and worse and worse. And then finally I mentioned to the professor at one point, I'm like, I just don't know what I'm doing. I'm just not able to get where I need to go. And he's like, yeah, technically you probably should have stopped 3 days ago. And I'm like, oh man. So yeah, I've kind of talked about that, but it's something to understand. How to hobby and not feel like you're alienating your significant other. Yeah, I can see that's not a bad topic. More why I like it. I'm hopelessly stuck in miniature agnostic games. Yeah, no, I do. I mean, they don't get views worth of crap, but I do want to do more of those. I get contorted into some uncomfortable positions painting for no real good reason. Yeah, I mean, that's Vince and I have had conversations about that as well. Kit bashing custom Imperial Guard units. Yeah. Especially with 10th edition coming out, I think that, and Combat Patrol, I've got the Combat Patrol for the Imperial Guard, and I've got some of it built. I have the gun emplacements built. I have the Armored Sentinel built. I have some of the Command Squad built. Yeah. I do everything I'm not supposed to when I paint. I have a classic or not so classic TV show on during painting sessions. Currently Friday the 13th of the series. Oh wow, that's old. Kind of, yeah. No, I vaguely remember that. 90s, I think, right? Maybe early 2000s. Yeah, I can't watch TV while I'm hobbying or YouTube or anything. I can listen to stuff. Listening is fine. I listen to audiobooks, listen to podcasts, but yeah, I can't watch anything. But some people totally can. Question for Uncle Adam in the chat. Does anyone know if the boarding patrol boxes will be usable in the new combat patrol? I don't think so. I think boarding patrol is for boarding actions and combat patrol is for combat patrols. They haven't said yet, but I don't think that that's the way they're going to do it. Now, there's a possibility they may make combat patrol lists, I guess, for boarding action boxes or whatever, but I don't know. Let's see here. Topic: how awesome is Adam's wife for not being jealous of all the time he spends on minis? Well, she, watches hockey and knits a lot too. So, it's, we both have our hobbies. That's part of the thing. I'm studying at the moment, and the teacher tells us to take breaks because he knew someone who died because he sat still too long. I mean, yeah. I mean, there's been, reports of, I remember there was a guy who was, I don't know if it was a guy, it was a person in Korea who played, I don't know, World of Warcraft or some other kind of MMO kind of type game, like at a internet cafe for, I don't know, 35 hours and then died or something like that. I mean, so yeah, that can definitely happen. You get blood clots and all kinds of stuff. Struggling to pick an Age of Sigmar army. Any instructions? Suggestions. Go with what you like the looks of. If you don't like the army, if you're like, well, these guys are really powerful, but I kind of hate the way they look, you're not going to finish them. You're not going to like them. You're not going to have a good time. But if you're like, I like the story, the look, a cool idea I have in my head for this particular army, like whatever, if it draws you and you think it's cool, that's the army you should go with. Now, if you are like, but no, I'm really all about only ever winning and I don't ever want to lose, then I can't help you because Lord knows I don't have that kind of stuff going on there. But B, I don't know what the current meta is, and it constantly changes and stuff like that. So instead, I would focus on what you think is cool and then build your army, build that army. If you think that, the Sylvaneth are cool, if you really like the undead and you're like, oh yeah, flesh eater courts, those are, like whatever. Rule of cool is very important, I think. Painting up the terrain for Soul Shackle, great stuff. Maybe do an episode on how to set up a game night. That's something, yeah. I like to make lists of what I'm currently working on and putting it away to see months down the road. Sure, I could see that. That's helpful. How to get more out of your meat trees. Ooh, I don't know about that. Game mechanics you like or that draw you to particular skirmish games? Yeah, potential. Why Orcs is the best? Well, yeah. More about Blood Bowl and other specialist games, at least from your perspective, like how you might paint or modify or rule tweak. I have never enjoyed Blood Bowl. Now, to be fair, I'm not a sports fan, so that's probably a big part of it. I owned Blood Bowl, like the original when it came out. Maybe not right when it came out, but the original, like first edition I owned. And I put the models all together and started playing with a friend of mine. And I was like, and it just never took. So I don't know that I'm necessarily the best guy to talk about that game. As far as other specialist games, I've done a couple of demos of Titanicus. It did not stick. Adeptus Flyarondicus. We were just talking about that yesterday on the Patreon live show. Like, I don't like spaceship games and that kind of stuff. I don't know. It just doesn't do something for me. I can't figure it out. I've bought a ton of Necromunda. I've bought a ton of Necromunda models and some terrain. I love Necromunda as a concept, but the game, oh Lord, that is just it's way too much. I definitely could see myself trying out Gang Wars from One Page Rules using Necromunda models, but oof, yeah, those are rough. So yeah, that wouldn't be a very positive video, I don't think, unfortunately, but you know, I appreciate it. Where can I get these meat trees? And is there a grill rock that they happen to grow next to? That might, well, I don't know. Maybe it's tasty. Seems not, but maybe it's tasty. What is kit bashing and why should you do it? I have been kicking around the idea of making a kit bashing video, kind of talking about baby steps, you know, head swaps, weapon swaps, easy stuff like that, like early on. But yeah, no, that's not a bad idea. Chris Bell, you wave the brush is the spelling for that channel. Yep. Good stuff. And he's also a super nice guy. Ways to nerf ranged attacking when ranged attacking is overpowered in a game system. Cover, I would think, is yeah, that's a good question. Where I am way behind. Good lord. There we go. Meat trees. Don't mean to be sassy, but is 3 months really such a big deal? Back in the day, we waited entire editions for new boxes. It's not that it's not enough time. It's that it's not that it's too much time. It's that it's not enough. Like, I don't think we need to have a new box every 3 months for Kill Team and for Warcry. So no, you're not being sassy at all. I'm just not making myself clear. Waiting 3 months for a box is like they're coming too quickly. Now, the fact that this box then comes out and then you have to wait another 3 months until you can just buy just this one army, that's a little bit of a pain. They could easily ship them at the same time, but they're obviously not going to because they're like, well, but if you really want these guys now, you should buy this big box and not the small box. So there's that. But yeah, I don't know. Those boxes, I don't know. I would like them to change that business model, but I suspect they won't. So there's that. Kill Team boxes selling out fast has been an ongoing issue, but they're having issues with the individual releases from the box sets selling out. Some of the Kill Team units are impossible to get. I saw a thing recently. Someone mentioned, I don't know where it was. Reddit, maybe? I don't know. It was Reddit or Twitter, one of the two. And I have a suspicion that this may be the case, but people have been talking about how, like, man, like, you know, the Ashes of Faith or whatever sold out instantly. And stores can barely get it. And same with the Kill Team thing and all that kind of stuff. And this person said it's a thing that I've been thinking for about the last couple of months. Potentially what's going on is they are producing so much Leviathan that they don't have the production bandwidth, for lack of a better word, to do more copies of the Kill Team stuff, you know, more copies of the other stuff. Like, you know, it could also be a mixture of they're spending so much time cranking out so much Leviathan, so they have a lot of it for everybody, you know, and they can sell through zillions of them like they did with Indominus. So it could be a mixture of that. Plus also we don't have the bandwidth to be able to produce enough Ashes of Faith, enough of this, enough of that. But then also if everything becomes like an instantly selling out kind of FOMO nightmare, then when Leviathan comes out, then people will jump on it, but then there will be a giant pile of it, and then it will sell through more. That's also slightly nefarious, but we don't know. Like, that's the thing, is that they have the one factory, or maybe there's two, but they have a finite amount of factory, however many factories they have there in Nottingham. And so they can only make so much stuff at a time. There was a job that I had shortly out of college. I worked for a label manufacturer. Then we would make labels that would go on equipment like lawnmowers and gas engines and stuff like that would say, hey, don't stick your finger in there, and that kind of stuff. But we also worked for this client that made napkins, you know, seasonal fancy napkins. You know, you buy a pack of napkins for $1.50 at your local Target or whatever. There's a sticker on there that shows you, you know, whatever price and UPC and all that jazz. We had an order for a single style, just one impression basically of this particular type of label, and they needed 50 million. So one of the guys Like every morning he would come in, set up the press, get everything rolling, get everything, registered and all that stuff, run it for 8 hours or more sometimes, stopping to obviously have to swap out, material and ink and all this jazz and whatever. He did that for a month and a half. That's all he did. He ran one job. Like he wore out the rubber plates. We had to make new rubber plates. He made 50 million of these. And that was all that Rick, I think that was his name. That's all that Rick got to do for a month and a half. That was his line tied up for a month and a half because there were so many. So production, like, there's a finite amount of production that can happen. And I am wondering if, now, there's a lot of people that are like, oh, well, Leviathan's going to sell it instantly. We're all going to be screwed. I'm wondering if the reason that everything else seems to be kind of slow is because they're making so much Leviathan, but we'll see. Hopefully they learn some stuff from Indominus, but also from Dominion, because Dominion, there are still boxes of Dominion laying around all over the place. So, but that's an Age of Sigmar thing, which is a different sales thing. And so, yeah, I don't know. It'll be very interesting. Let's see here. Kill Team has to be a good game when my record is 0-4-1, and I still love it. I'm glad that you love it. That's cool. How to get back into Warhammer 40k 10th edition for game veterans. I'm going to be making videos about Combat Patrol. So I apologize in advance for people who don't want to hear about Combat Patrol, but I'm going to be making videos about Combat Patrol because, I think it's a good way to get into wargaming to some degree. Admittedly, is it cheaper to go with even just like buy a skirmish game and that kind of stuff? To some degree, yeah. But there's a lot of folks out there that are like, yeah, but I want to play the thing that everybody plays. It's just the way the human brain works, popular things are popular. So, and here's the deal as well. I enjoy Combat Patrol. It's how I got into Warhammer 40,000 back in 5th edition. So I enjoy that smaller scale, smaller group, not scaled this way, but, fewer models type of thing. I do dig that. And I think it's going to be very good for people getting into, because you literally buy the models and you download everything else for free, which is awesome. You can buy some of the stuff. You could buy the book if you wanted to, those index cards or whatever. I don't even know if they're going to sell the Combat Patrol index cards or if they'll be download only. That I haven't heard. I know that there's index cards for, like, those we know for regular 10th edition are going to be sold. I don't know about the Combat Patrol ones, if there would be something that would be sold or if they're download only. But you will be able to download them. So that's cool. For free. The Combat Patrol ones specifically. And I think the regular index ones, I think you'll download for free, or they'll be included in the app, or there's some way you can get them digitally for free. But yeah, so anyway, there's going to be some, like, my video coming up this Friday is going to be a little bit about Combat Patrol, like, because again, it's not out yet, but we've got some, there's some stuff I want to compare and contrast. And so we'll go through that. But nonetheless, I have a suspicion that GW is going to lean into Combat Patrol quite a bit for 40k. Like, this is how you start playing 40k. And then that other thing, I forget what it's called. It's not Vanguard. Is it Vanguard? Whatever. They have boxes that are like Combat Patrol boxes, but they're for Age of Sigmar. I would not be surprised if next summer they also do the same type of thing for that. I learned how to play Kill Team watching your Death Guard kill sisters. Nice. That was a fun game. Then they changed Kill Team and all I do is paint. Yep. Yeah. No, I've not been a Kill Team player since they changed it either, from 2018 to 2021. I get you. How the hobby all around, from YouTube to painting to trips to the hobby store, brings folks from all walks together. Well, yeah. Now that I've designed a few games, here's how my thoughts on house rules have changed. Wow. Oh, I see what you're saying. Gotcha. Solo wargaming and RPG gaming. I don't know about RPG gaming, but I've done a video about solo gaming already. Again, some time ago, though. Today, I tried to iron a warped cutting mat. Managed to install a new cabinet to showcase my minis. Neat. More Warcry, or really any kind of skirmish games, especially if they are a better alternative to Kill Team. Sure. I would definitely say take a look at Grimdark Future Firefight from One Page Rules. That's a good sci-fi, skirmish game that gives you lots and lots of options and stuff like that. It's quite nice. I've played it with Sam some. Let's see here. Vehicle rule systems that work best. I was just talking about motorcycles recently. I think it was on Twitch on Friday. Like how I've never understood the concept of motorcycles in 40K. Like, oh, I'm going to get into hand-to-hand combat with this guy who's on a motorcycle. It just doesn't make any sense. I have kicked around the idea. I think it would be fun for Vince and I to make like a mini game, like a little micro kind of game where it makes motorcycle combat make sense, where it's just like motorcycle on motorcycle, almost like jousting kind of, you know what I mean? Like that kind of thing I think would be sort of interesting. But the whole concept of like, we're in a fight, I've got a sword or a pistol or whatever that, and you do too, but you're standing on a motorcycle. I feel like you are sort of in a bad situation because I should just be able to push you over and then you and the motorcycle fall over backwards, and that's no good. Or you can't turn very well, because the guy got behind me, but I'm on this motorcycle and it's very heavy. It just it's never made sense to me. Narrative and campaign games, how they boost painting motivation. I think I've done some videos kind of like that, but it's not a bad idea. Unusual tools. How would you spend 3 wishes for the future of mini painting in games? I'd love a worldwide franchise company of shops where you could get any STL printed on demand. Yeah, that would be pretty cool. Yeah. 3 wishes. From some sort of hobby genie, perhaps, or wargaming genie. I don't know. That's a good question. Unusually sunny Snowdonia. I mean, really, naming a place Snowdonia seems to be like, eventually, well, unless it does snow all the time, eventually you'll be like, well, this doesn't seem very snowy at all. But that's unusually sunny is kind of cool. We finally finished our house move. I now have a huge pile of boxes and needs organizing and unpacking into the hobby cave. That happens, yeah. But we'll have a good time with it. Links between fantasy wargaming and real military tech and history. Value jumps between Shadow, Midtown, and Highlight. Midtone, I bet probably is what is opposed to Midtown, but yes. Yeah, like blending and smoothing and that kind of stuff. Yeah, it depends on, like, I see people that paint for tabletop who paint like really super, like go really contrasty. And I've never liked to go really, really contrasty. I have a tendency to be a little bit less so, but then, different strokes for different folks. But yeah. Morning from Australia. I'm going to set up a team for my son to try Space Station Zero. Nice. Any advice on what team type and size would provide a fun first experience for a young gaming newbie? I would probably say either a 4-person or 6-person group to some degree, just because the 8-person group, that's just a lot more models to keep track of. Because you also are adding a commander to each of those groups. So it's either a 5, a 7, or a 9-person group. The trade-off is that your 4-person group they're all kind of stronger, their stats are all higher, but then there's fewer of them, so you have to concern yourself with, like, if you're trying to take objectives or trying to handle several things at once, when you only have 5 models total, it can be a little bit more difficult. Whereas when you have 7 with the 6-person group, plus the commander, then it works out pretty well that way. As far as the faction is concerned, it kind of depends on what they like. I would either maybe go pirate or I would either go maybe pirate or war, the warship or the pirate ship. That might not be a bad idea. Upside to the pirate ship is you get to pick lots of different options that maybe other people can't, because the pirates just steal a bunch of stuff. So they have lots of different gear options and things like that. Made it to a live stream for the first time in a while. Well, we're glad to have you, Muskrat. Hope you are well and enjoying your hobby time. I had a tiny bit of hobby time yesterday. Otherwise, I've been working on stuff for the launch of the next game. I'm looking forward to some hobby time though soon. I've got a bunch coming up in June for sure. Let's see here. Fudging the game rules for minis. Space Marines have a different gun than the one in their hands. More models instead of buying different versions of the same one. So that's like a WYSIWYG versus not WYSIWYG kind of discussion. Yeah, I can see that. Uncle Adam's answer in the bar exam. I think rules matter. I mean, if that gets me to be a lawyer, then that's weird. GW Old World is great for Turnip 28 kit bashing. Yeah, I could see some of that for sure. Some of the like squirrelier, kind of weird, kind of Bretonian and Empire stuff. Yeah, I could see that. Best combat patrols to get started, quickest to paint, easiest for new players, maybe even how to rope in new players. I'm actually going to be making a video like that. Not this upcoming Friday, but soonish. Yeah, no, I'm definitely, that's on the list. Let's see here. This might be out of your wheelhouse, but how to disregard all outside distractions and really allow yourself to enjoy and immerse yourself in your miniature painting hobby. That seems like a really long title, but I get what you're going. Yeah, I think that's, I mean, I think that some people do get easily distracted for sure. And you know, I have a tendency, because I'm not a big TV watcher too much these days. I don't, you know, because a lot of times people are like, oh, I just don't ever have any time to paint. And then you're like, well, what did you do last night? And they're like, well, I had to watch, you know, I don't know, I watched Game of Thrones for the third time. I watched, you know, an episode, you know, or 3 episodes from season 2. And then I did that, you know, and so then the question becomes, and I've talked about this before, what actually is your hobby? Is your hobby being a film buff and a TV buff and stuff like that? And you just kind of want to do this miniature stuff, but maybe you don't, you know, so there's nothing wrong with being a person who enjoys films and TV and stuff like that. And that's your hobby, is consuming that media as opposed to painting miniatures. But you can buy the miniatures and then have them and then not do anything with them, and then you're kind of, you feel bad because you got these miniatures you spent money on and now you don't know what to do with them, but you know, you don't ever have any time because you're doing this, you know, the film and the TV and whatnot, and watching movies and stuff. So you know, everybody only has so much time, and so it becomes one of those situations where yeah, I mean, I did a video kind of talking about like what is your hobby sort of, but yeah, I get you. Speaking of which, thank you for suggesting Affinity Designer, perfect replacement for Adobe Illustrator. It's a pretty good thing, and it's considerably cheaper than Adobe anything. Yes, but there you go. Remember Aldus PageMaker? I never used it, but I know I've heard of it. Morphed into InDesign. I loved watching that to kick Quark Express out of the market. Yeah, I learned Quark Express in college and used it in several different jobs. I don't think I ever owned a copy. Maybe I did own a copy of it. I don't remember. I know I owned like an actual copy of CorelDRAW. That was kind of my jam for a long time, but it's more of an Illustrator thing. It's not particularly but I know I laid out at least a couple of games in CorelDRAW. I don't remember if I had Quark or not. I know I used it a ton, but again, it might have just been in work. I don't know that I actually ever owned a copy of it. Topic, Ancient Egypt when? That's a good question. That's a very good question. For those of you who don't know, Ancient Egypt is a miniature game idea that Sam came up with while, I think, in the airport in December when we were on our way to Vince's place. It just sort of popped into his head, and it's a game where you use eggs for your miniatures, and it takes place in ancient Egypt, and there's a lot going on there. There's a lot to unpack. But anyway, yeah, it's somewhat of an inside joke basically with Sam and then whatnot. Heading to Gen Con for the first time in August. Any pro tips? I made a video about what to do when going to either conventions or Gen Con or both. I know I've done that in the past. Comfortable shoes are super key. Yeah, really super key. Drink a lot of water. That's helpful too. What is the current model in Photoshop? Is it all subscription? Yes. Yeah, it's pretty much all subscription. It's what they call CC, Creative Cloud. So yeah, it's all subscription. Snarling Badger hype, indeed. Ask Catalyst after that Mercenaries Kickstarter raised more than double that they had hoped. Yeah, they raised a bunch of money with that. Wargames Atlantic is doing a GameFound campaign so they can release a whole army at once. Yeah, they're doing kind of like Trader Guard. It's kind of cool. Yeah, I'm really glad about that. I like the Wargames Atlantic stuff a lot. I really do. Quark Express is a nightmare. Do they even still make it? I've just been using InDesign and it's been fine. What to wear and what not to wear to game night? I have no idea. I suppose you want to be comfortable. That's about all I can think of. Don't let perfect be the enemy of the good. Yeah, I did a video basically about that, about the pursuit of perfection. No, what is it? I forget the actual term. The pursuit of perfection is problematic. No, that's not what it is. Anyway, yeah, I've done a video about that kind of. When it comes to painting, you have to know when to hold them and when to fold them. That's true. It's true. What kind of videos gets you the most views? Talking about Games Workshop stuff because it's popular. So people watch that kind of stuff. I think that conflict. Vincent, again, Vincent and I have talked about this type of stuff. I kicked around the idea at some point since we had a bunch of masterminds at Vince's place back in December. It was me and Vince and Sam and Ninjon and Miniac. I was like, we should try to sit down and just figure out like a taxonomy. There's whiteboards at Vince's place in the basement, and this is why I'm doing that. But like write down a taxonomy of like the different types of wargaming videos. Conflict is a big one, which is why you see people constantly talking about like, oh, GW is doing this to us again, or this is but and because people watch that stuff. It's just the way that the internet works. If you've ever seen any YouTube videos ever, the ones that are about drama and conflict are the ones that have a tendency to get a bunch of eyeballs. It's the same with regular television as well. Look how well, Jerry Springer did and, Maury Povich and stuff like that. Sometimes news ones seem to do well, but they only do well initially. And then they, no one's going to go back and read an old news or watch an old news video from 4 years ago. Whereas lately tutorials don't work very well, it seems. But tutorials have legs. Like people will watch them. I've talked about this in the past. The initial reaction to a tutorial is that thumbnail and you're like, oh, that's cool. I'm not painting any power swords right now, but and then you don't watch it. But then later on, 6 months to a year to 2 years later, you're like, how the heck do I paint a power sword? And then you start typing and go from there. And yeah, so there's that. Let's see here. What are your thoughts on historical wargaming? I'm not a fan. Alternate history historical, like weird World War II, weird World War I, that kind of stuff. That I'm cool with, but for the most part, I'm not really into historical gaming. How to hobby without an alienating significant other. I asked my wife for her input on color schemes for my non-army models. She knows color better, and often the armies that she gets the completed model for our office display case. Oh, that's nice. Highlight creators and show the game. Talk about Ash about Steel Rift or whatever it's called. Steel Rift is very cool. Yep. Sam and Ancient Egypt. Well, if Sam ever publishes Ancient Egypt, we'll definitely talk about it. Top 2 player starter miniature games for the cost. Man, I can't think of a lot of. There's like Conquest has a 2-player starter pack. Technically, kind of Leviathan will be an actual 2-player starter pack if you play Combat Patrol, because it'll have enough models in it for specifically to actually play legal Combat Patrol, because they've made lists for that. But like Leviathan, it won't be 2 1,000 point forces, I don't think. So you would barely be able to play like a regular game of 40K, I don't think. It's like a starter generally. Well, it's not even a starter. They call it a launch box, I believe, but whatever. It's all semantics. Favorite swears for bad rolls. Interesting. Shazbot. That's a good one. Sure, exactly. You got that. You got that right there, Squeezely. You got it in one. Coming in late, so unsure if this has been asked, but any interest in Shatterpoint? I played a demo at Adepticon, thanks to a viewer, because she, Panny Mauser, she had gotten, she was able to secure, like, because you had to, like, sign up to be able to do a demo. You couldn't just walk up and go, oh, what's this all about? Like, they had a sign up and there was a whole thing. So she'd gotten a spot, and then you get to bring somebody or whatever, and then she sent me a message on Discord, because she's a Uncle Adam's a regular and all that kind of stuff. And so she sent me a message and she's like, hey, I've got a spot at late at whatever time it was, 5 o'clock or something like that. Would you be interested in, trying it out? And I was like, yeah. Because I had not gotten a chance to go by and try to sign up or anything like that. But I did want to try it out because I'm interested, and I like it better than Marvel Crisis Protocol. It does feel more fraught with danger, and it feels less like it's just like pushing people around to try to get points on, objectives or not. It feels more shooty and stuff like that, which I appreciate. Still not cool. Still not a fan of the scale, like the actual physical, like bigger folks. There's something about the sculpts too that I'm just not, it's like just an art style that's not my aesthetic, and I don't know what it is. And I'm also not particularly huge into the Clone Wars stuff. So I know they are making, like the traditional Star Wars episodes 4, 5, and 6. They're making some of that stuff coming out at some point down the road. I might take a closer look at that, but I don't know if it's for me, but I'm glad that they're heading in that direction, I guess, maybe. I don't know. Good morning from Seattle. How you doing? Update to old videos, things that have changed in the hobby, new ways to dry brush, new painting. Yeah, I mean, that's something that makes sense. Working on the new Ahsoka model, and the amount of extra bags made me think about how much extra plastic we have in the hobby in light of new studies on how bad plastic is the environment. Yeah, you're not wrong. Hurt my back about 10 years ago, and since then I can only paint lying on my side. Huh. Does that work out pretty well? I hope it does. I love building beastmen, and they are rarely good in the meta, though they are now, I think. I mean, yeah, beastmen are very cool, but yeah, they're not particularly ever a good model, but they are. I love their little faces. They're very expressive. I do love the beastmen. When I got into Age of Sigmar when it first launched, I had a real chaos soup army. I had Skaven, I had beastmen, I had Nurgle guys, I had some basically slaves to chaos, or slaves to darkness. And they were all mixed together in like a 1,500 point, I believe, list. And I really enjoyed messing around with those guys. When painting, everything moved. Come on, where was I? I hope they release alternative combat patrol lists that aren't just the ones in the boxes. I mean, I made a video about that like literally a couple of weeks ago, but yeah, it would be very smart of them to, I mean, they're doing it already with Leviathan. They're like, hey, look, we're putting a combat patrol. Well, I don't know if there's going to be a combat patrol list in the box, like an actual physical card or whatever. Probably not. Well, maybe there are. I don't know. But they are like, look, we're going to be publishing combat patrol stuff, because I, again, still don't know if there will ever be any actual physical combat patrol stuff, because they keep talking about free downloads and all that. But either way, makes sense. With Leviathan, you're going to be able to build a combat patrol of Tyranids and a combat patrol of Space Marines. So that's something. Going forward, they should also be making combat patrol lists available for the new FOMO boxes that they put out, which I'm sure they will. They should be making them for the old FOMO boxes. There should be combat patrol for the Space Marines and the Necrons in Indomitus. You know what I mean? Like, it would be smart, because then, like I said, I have a very strong suspicion there are people who are sitting on a copy of Indomitus that they started to build and then gave up for whatever reason. It just happens. But if all of a sudden you were like, hey, look, this isn't part of an army now. This is a combat patrol box, or not all of it, but this is a combat patrol army that's within your Indomitus box for either your Necrons or for your Space Marines. That would probably poke some people in the butt and be like, oh, yeah, no, I should finish building that and then painting it. And, well, I'm going to have to buy some paints. Well, where am I going to buy paints from? You know, that kind of thing. It is an idea, combat patrol, where they can put out literally a free download and spur people to act. And I think that that's an important thing. Do's and don'ts to planning a trip to Adepticon 2024. I'm trying to go next year for the first time. Yeah. Starting 40K with the release of 10th with my nephew. Any advice? He's a true novice painter, and I have some experience with other games. Gotcha. That's not a bad idea. Using different paint ranges together, and particularly how to convert from Citadel colors to other ranges as YouTube paint tutorials end to use Citadel colors. Yeah, there's not, I don't think, a great way to convert. You know what I mean? I don't know if you guys can hear that. That's Maggie. She's doing a fleecy parade. So she has a toy in her mouth, which is made out of fleece, and then she just sort of walks through the house singing for a while, and then eventually she drops it, and then, I don't know, it's a thing she likes to do, does it quite frequently, several times a day. It sounds like she's stuck or she's in, but she's just singing. She's fine. Let's see, where was I? Converting from colors, from Citadel colors. Yeah. Yeah, there's just not a great, like, setup to be able to do that. You know what I mean? Like, there's not a great, like, most companies, and I think rightly so, most companies don't go, we're going to make exact copies or as close as possible to Citadel colors. Colors being exact are super not important, honestly. I did make a video about this, about how just colors aren't that important. You know, if you're watching a tutorial and they're like, oh, this is the color I used for this, and you're like, oh crap, I don't have that color. Well, you've got something probably close, at least sort of close. It'll be fine, you know? Taking into consideration the exact colors that are in tutorials and stuff like that, that's not a thing you need to do generally, as it turns out. Which is why I don't generally focus on it too much. I will usually show in, like, the tutorial thing that I did on Friday, I will, like, here's the here's the paint that I used or whatever. And it's usually if I didn't say what the paint is. And it's all, honestly, the reason I do it is just so I don't have to answer 28 different comments from, like, what color did you use there? I just go, yeah, it's this one, you know, and that's fine. But it's really, if I tell you, hey, use a sepia wash, you don't have to use Seraphim Sepia. You could use light tone from Army Painter, which is not exactly the same color, but it's close. I mean, there's a lot of different sepia style tones out there, and being exact is not important. Games that play well or rules modifications for 2v2 or 3-man versus 4-man free-for-all games. It's interesting. Jim Crimmins, how you doing? A focus on a specific miniature or a few minis that are great for painting and why, or why certain models are great for contrast methods versus opaque methods. Yeah, I mean, yeah, figuring out what type of paint to use for what type of model. Yeah, I could see that. Have you ever looked into Albedo Combat Patrol? I haven't. I don't know what that is. Workstation solutions and planning. Yeah, I'd like to watch that video because I'm bad at it. Yeah. Information on historical gaming, best games to get into. I've never been a fan. I think that's part of the problem too. That's why I don't generally talk about it. I did play Flames of War for a hot minute back in almost 10 years ago. I was playing, but it was mainly because a bunch of friends got into it, and it didn't stick. Yeah, I don't mind, and I've talked about this a bunch of times. I don't mind playing a game that's like alternate history, you know? I don't want to play a World War II game. My wife's grandfather was in World War II. He was a Marine Raider in the Pacific Theater, and he never talked about it. And I just kind of don't want to make a game out of that, you know? But if there's like laser tanks and werewolves and stuff like that, like Conflict 47, well, okay, then I'm more on board, you know? But for the most part, historical gaming has just never quite resonated enough with me. Now, I'm not saying that if you enjoy it, you're wrong. Not at all. But it's never worked out well for me, I guess. Have you picked up the new Fantasy Weirdos rules yet? You mean Sword Weirdos? I haven't yet. I keep meaning to. I forgot. Yeah, it's on Wargame Vault right now. Sword Weirdos. It's the fantasy version of Space Weirdos, which I've talked about a bunch of times. is, yeah, like I said, it's available, I believe now on Wargame Vault, and I just haven't pulled the trigger yet. I want to put it on my iPad, but then I also want to print some copies too. So I need to download it onto my iPad. I need to buy it, download it onto my iPad, and then email it to myself so that I can then, because I can't print from my iPad. I don't know. Our laser printer is weird and doesn't like to talk to the iPad or much of anything else. So, yeah. Hobby thing is not an easy topic. There's a clear hierarchy of social acceptance in hobbies. Just watching movies is usually not highly regarded. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of people whose hobby is movies. They own tons and tons of movies. They got movie posters all over. They watch a lot of movies. I think that's a hobby for sure. I mean, you're not making something unless you start making movies, you know, and some people do that too, you know. I got a good friend who's got a huge, like he's a huge movie buff, horror movies. Started making some shorts, made his first technically feature, oh God, back in the 2000s. Made another one in the early 2010s. And like each one started to get like bigger and bigger production. I was in one of the movies. So was Sam. Sam and I were both in this movie back in 2013, 2014. It's called Dead Weight. You can find it, I believe, on Amazon, like Prime. I don't think it's free with Prime. I think you got to pay, I don't know, $3 or $4 to rent it or whatever. But yeah, there's a movie called Dead Weight. It's like a zombie movie, but not, there's almost no zombies in it. But it's a horror movie, and Sam and I are both in it. And then the most recent the most recent movie that he wrote and directed is called Black Mold. And it came out at the Kansas City Panic Fest film festival, horror film festival back in April. And it got picked up by a worldwide distributor just recently, and I believe it got screened at the Cannes Film Festival. And he lives currently about a mile and a half that way. And he's a good friend of mine, John Pata. And yeah, but he started out as just a big, huge horror movie fan. And eventually you can take it someplace if you keep working. I sold off all of my Battlefleet Gothic game stuff when my life went into the crapper. That hurt a lot. Yeah, I mean, that does happen. People do that. And then, you know, hopefully, like when things get better, maybe you can go back and find some of that stuff on, you know, eBay or whatever. Quality of paint job versus quality on the tabletop. Perhaps collaborate with Sam or Vince to have them paint up a high standard skill at the Kill Team combat, see how it plays versus standard. I mean, they play the same, I'm pretty sure. Whether your stuff is super fancy painted or whether it's not, they play the same generally. But there is something to be said. I've talked a bunch about tabletop quality versus display quality. And if you are predominantly a player and not a display painter, sticking with things that are tabletop quality is going to get you more stuff done more quickly. I did a video recently about, you know, kind of skipping the details and not paying so much attention to all of the little tiny details that they put into the models these days, just because you don't necessarily need to, especially if you're looking at tabletop. So I've talked a little bit about that, but it's not a bad idea. A lot of deep egg lore. Do you still paint the eggs for Egypt? I don't know. Probably. Maybe like Easter, you soak them in the stuff. Pickled eggs for mummies. Ooh, there you go. Let's see here. Zambies, how you doing? I'm way behind, so Zambies probably said hi to me like a half an hour ago, but there you go. You folks should be following Zambies here on the YouTubes and on Twitch. General tabletop battle tactics is a topic. How to get the best of different opponents with different forces. Slow versus fast, shooty versus melee. I'd have to talk to somebody smart for that, because I have no concept of strategery. But it would be not a bad idea for me to talk to somebody who was good at that. I mean, honestly, it might be Vince. Vince is a pretty good player. He's not only a good painter, but he's also a very good player, too. Plays in tournaments quite frequently, whereas I do not. Price of perfection is prohibitive. That's what it is. Yeah, but there we go. Wear deodorant. Oh, at going to Gen Con. Yeah, that was one of the things in there, definitely. Keep yourself washed, keep yourself fed, keep yourself hydrated, wear some comfortable shoes. Nothing gets clicks like controversy. No, you're not wrong. Videos always drop at 9 a.m. for me, which is my first 15 minutes break time, so I always watch it then. Kick back and watch if I'm not. News creators have to keep that daily cadence. Well, I mean, yeah, sometimes that's true too. Good point. Pachow compilation. That would be that would be a bunch of work. But like a supercut. I know what you're talking about, yeah. Uncle Adam, you are not the father. You are the uncle. See, there you go. Like the drama someone tried to start around Midwinter's historical wargaming video by putting words in his mouth. I think I saw that thumbnail, but I didn't watch it. Did I? I don't think I watched it. No. Or, well, wait. Maybe I watched a bit of it. Were they painting tanks? Maybe I did watch a bit of it. Why robot squirrels are not the future of wargaming. I mean, I get that. Tutorials don't do well? No, they do not. Nope. Especially, like I said, again, there's velocity and then there's longevity. Videos, velocity is important because the algorithm pays very close attention to velocity. And velocity is about when a video goes live, YouTube starts showing it to people who have watched your videos in the past. And then if they click on it and watch it, then it goes, okay, this is a good one. And it shows it to more people that have watched your videos in the past, people who are, interested in things that are adjacent to what this video is about, stuff like that. It spreads it around more. People think that the algorithm is this kind of evil monster thing that says, well, you're not talking about Warhammer here, so we're not going to spread this video around. It has nothing to do with the content of your video. It has everything to do with the way that the viewers are reacting to your video. So when your video first goes live, they kind of seed it out to the people who frequently watch your videos. And if they go, nah, I'm good, then that's bad. And then it doesn't just show it. It just stops showing it to people, because all YouTube is trying to do is to get people to watch more videos. That's it. YouTube doesn't care about your channel, like the algorithm doesn't care about your channel, doesn't care about your content. There are certain things it does care about your content, swears, within the first 30 seconds, nudity, things like that. But if they're like there are people out there that think they're like, well, if I don't talk about Warhammer, then YouTube won't spread it around. It's not YouTube doing that. It's that Warhammer is popular. So when people see a thing about Warhammer, then they're like, oh, okay, cool. I like Warhammer. And then they watch it. And when more people initially watch the video, the algorithm gooses it up and sends it out to more people. But if you talk about a game that like no one's ever heard about, but it's super crazy interesting and it's a great video, people won't watch it because the initial people that get shown it won't watch it, and then it just doesn't get spread around. So it's all about that initial launch. That's like the most important part about getting it kind of spread around. Now, can a video be up for 2 years, then all of a sudden go viral because PewDiePie comes along and starts talking about it during some video or something like that? Is he even around anymore? I'm pretty old. Maybe Mr. Beast talks about it. I don't know. I don't watch either of them, but someone big points out your video, and then all of a sudden your video gets shown to a whole bunch of people, and a bunch of people watch it, and then the algorithm will goose it out to more people. So it can happen later on down the road. But in general, the most important part to a video is when it first launches. If the initial people who are watching your video, specifically subscribers or people who've watched your videos in the past, if they don't click on the video, the algorithm's like, huh, okay, and then just doesn't show it to as many people going forward. That's just the way algorithms work. It's the same thing with Twitter. Well, I take that back. Twitter is reacting a lot more to, and this we know because we actually saw Twitter source code about a month ago. It kind of, someone just who didn't work at Twitter anymore decided, oh, okay, cool. And they just put all the Twitter source code up on like GitHub or something like that. Yeah, you could literally see the numbers and they're like, oh, if someone likes your tweet, then, goose the algorithm this percentage. I think it was all based off of not fractions, but decimals. And if somebody retweets it, well, then that's, worth this. And it's all about figuring out the weight within the algorithm of the thing. Anyway, I've gone off topic. I apologize. But yeah, that's the thing. Taxonomy video sounds like fun. I would love to know the different VincyCon attendees' approach to the topic differently. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Let's see here. Model agnostic games. I have talked about miniature agnostic games a good deal. Thoughts on sword weirdos? I'm looking forward to checking it out. How to prep for Gen Con. Walk more now so you don't suffer when you show. That's, yeah, I need to do that myself. Yeah, I need to do a lot more exercising before I get to Gen Con. Alternate history. I've covered some Peter Pig, SCW, anarchist militia to account for the Kaiser Reich. I don't understand a lot of those words. I apologize. Are there rules for running a campaign different? Are there rules for running a campaign game for Silent Death? Geez. I don't even know if that game's made anymore. Like, my good friend Peter usually runs it at TMX, but I don't know if that game is even available. I know that Iron Crown Enterprises is back in business again under new ownership, I'm assuming. But when I saw their booth at Gen Con, it was only Rollmaster stuff, which is RPGs. Now, they might be selling the old stuff as PDFs. I guess I haven't looked. So maybe, yeah, it's maybe available. The old Silent Death. Silent Death was a space combat game back in like the 80s and 90s. It was made by Iron Crown Enterprises. And I used to play that quite a bit back in the day. But I haven't even really thought too much about it these days. But yeah, I'm assuming that stuff is probably available at least somewhere on PDF. Probably Wargaming Vault or Drive-Thru RPG or something like that. Let's see here. Underwater squirrels versus fishmen. Ooh. Some sort of airplane shenanigans. I'm picking up Shatterpoint on Friday, and if I don't like it, I'll sell it. I shall find out. Well, there you go. GW sent 18,000 boxes of Augustus set to the dump, apparently. I don't know what Augustus is. What to do with old sprues? I've been kicking around that idea because I've been using them here and there in terrain. But that's not a bad idea. The old sprues one is one I've been thinking about. Top 5 digital sculptors and top 5 physical sculptors. Alternatives to mainstream minis. Maybe breakdown between best sci-fi and best fantasy. Yeah. Stepping up for a few minutes to get cannabis and coffee back in 20. Well, there you go. Taking things from outside the hobby, I just learned from a watercolor artist how to get liquid mask latex off a brush without damaging it. Nice. Stargrave works well with 3 and 4 players, and of course ranges is Shadow Deep. That's co-op. Yeah, that's true. Good point. I like co-op. You know what I mean? Param, how you doing? More Why I Like It, featuring neat products and indie games, accessories that don't get a lot of press. Yeah, I mean, like I said, the last several of those Why I Like It's got like no views, but I'm continuing to do them here and there. I don't want to do too many of them just because I don't want it to become like I generally am trying to do one like every other month, maybe, sometimes a little bit quicker. But yeah, I do. The way I look at it is this. Previous to 10th edition, previous to Combat Patrol, I will talk about stuff from Games Workshop because 2 reasons. Number 1, when you are a new player interested in getting into the hobby, you hear about Games Workshop. So if I am a channel that is trying to get new people in the hobby, but I completely ignore Games Workshop, I'm doing a disservice to my mission, which is to get new people in the hobby. I've talked about this before, about the popular music versus indie music kind of thing. If you've got this kid who's 10 years old and is deciding that they're kind of interested in listening to music and stuff like that, and you're like, okay, cool, and you only ever, and you're like, well, this is the only thing you can listen to. This is what you should be listening to. And it's some indie band that they broke up 10 years ago and they're from Portland, Maine or whatever, and they just had 3 albums and blah, 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 and whatever. Like that's... But when you are first getting into something like music, you're probably going to listen to popular music because it's available and it's everywhere and it's popular. You know, that's just the way it works. Same thing with Warhammer in general. So there's that. Secondly, the other thing besides that is also that it does also draw eyeballs. You know, I could make videos that are about incredibly super specific, tiny little topics all the time, but then it would not bring eyeballs to the yard, as it were. The milkshake would not bring the eyeballs to the yard. I'm mixing my metaphors, but my point is that to make the channel grow, which is useful for me, but also for just useful for getting more people to be able to watch the videos, you kind of have to be able to like do that. So the idea is talk about Warhammer from time to time, obviously, because it's on people's minds and it's interesting to people. And also to some degree, depending on what it is, it's more sometimes or less interesting to me. Specifically, like these days, I'm very interested in Combat Patrol because that's my big nostalgic thing, is how I started in 40K, blah, 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 all that. But you do that, and then every once in a while you sneak in, hey, but what about, Space Weirdos? Or, hey, what about, Forbidden Psalm or Zona Alpha or, those types of things. So the idea is, get them in, come in for the fun and stay for the indie. I don't know. I'm not, I got to think better on that particular specific cut line. But yeah, that's kind of the trick. So, I'm just trying to give you guys the straight inside baseball. And so, like I like painting Games Workshop models a lot. I also like painting 3D printed stuff and stuff from War Games Atlantic and stuff from all over different places. But yeah, that's kind of the thing, is that like it would be, I think, a disservice to the new people to ignore all the Games Workshop stuff out there just because I feel salty about it or whatever the deal is. But on the other hand, I can be truthful about it when I think they're doing stuff that's dumb, and B, I can also then be like, hey, well, okay, so you're, maybe you're interested in Kill Team, but boy, you just can't find it anywhere, can you? That's interesting. That box just sold out in 30 seconds. Huh. You know what didn't sell out? Grimdark Future Firefight from One Page Rules, stuff like that, so yeah, that's the idea in general. How to remember all special rules and stratagems, but actually gaming and not forget about 30% of your buffs and powers. That's a tough one. I would like to know that myself. I think it's all about trying to figure out what kind of gaming aids work best for you. Is it best for you to have a card for each thing? Is it best for you to have it all on one sheet of paper? Is it best for you to have tokens that you use so you remember, oh, I didn't use this yet? I think I've seen people do all kinds of different things, and that's not a bad idea. Ian Zabattle played 2 games of Shatterpoint. He said it's very objective heavy. It's objective heavy, but you're still shooting each other. The thing that I have with Marvel is that it's also objective heavy, but I don't feel like anyone's ever in danger. It's because like comic book heroes aren't ever supposed to die, but people croak in, Star Wars sort of frequently. I mean, admittedly, most of them are stormtroopers, but still, you know what I mean? It's like, there's just something about the feel of it that I liked better. Still not necessarily probably going to pull me in. That, and also the scale is squirrely in my mind. I don't like that big 40 millimeter scale. Ash of Guerrilla Miniature Games has been doing videos intermittently on his solo Stargrave campaign. Got me intrigued by the rulebook. Yeah, absolutely. But he also talks a lot about Games Workshop stuff too. But he also sneaks in indie stuff, and that's kind of the play. That's what I think that he and I are probably on the same page with a lot of that. But if you go back and look at the battle reports, you'll be able to notice that the battle reports for Age of Sigmar stuff and for 40K stuff and for Games Workshop stuff are going to pull in a lot more eyeballs than the ones for Forbidden Psalm, for Steel Rift, for any kind of stuff like that. Stargrave. Use photographed minis and terrain to illustrate screenplay storyboards. I mean, I love photography and I like taking pictures of minis and like little scenes and stuff like that. That's interesting. Hobby color converter app for color swapping by brands. Hobby color converter app. Is that an app that's already out there? That's a smart thing to do. Are craft paints like Deca Art fine for beginners in the hobby? Short answer, yes-ish. They're great for terrain. I use them for terrain, but I don't usually use them on my models. Might be controversial with the GW bashing all over YouTube. I mean, there's also a lot of non-bashing of Games Workshop all over YouTube, but yeah. Why is GW successful even though they are expensive? Yeah. I mean, there's some things to unpack there. I think it's predominantly because I think one of the reasons that Games Workshop is the most is honestly it's because of the lore, which is interesting since I have this much interest in the lore. I really I like to read Eisenhorn and I like to read Ravenor and a couple other books here and there, and the rest of it I don't care about at all. But there are a lot of people out there who the lore is the most important thing to them. And so GW has leaned heavy into that by making I was looking on the Audible site or the Audible app yesterday on my phone. I was looking at the Audible app for Horus Heresy books, and they say that there's 156 Horus Heresy books. And I'm like, and that's just Horus Heresy. And I'm like, good Lord. So yeah, my strong opinion is it's that the lore is the thing that draws the most people. And I don't even mean just the books, reading the books, but just thinking about Space Marines punching Necron dudes in the face and the Dark Eldar doing Dark Eldar stuff, whatever it is that they do. I don't know, ride around on mini bikes or whatever. Let's see here. Are some games hard to learn, or are you just dumb? I don't hate the title, but some game, it's not a idea. I appreciate you putting that one in there. That's not bad. Craft paints are harder to use as they don't thin well, but they can work if that's all you have. Also, the pigment is usually a lot bigger and chunkier, and when your person's only this big, bigger pigment is noticeable. But on terrain, it's awesome. Albedo Combat Patrol is a game based off of the Albedo Anthropomorphics comics from the 80s. Nope, I've never heard of those. I'm sorry. Yeah, no, I've never heard of that. Too Fat Lardies. I have always wanted to play What a Tanker. Is that what it's called? I think it's what it's called. I've seen it at conventions before, and I've always been but I've never been able to get into a demo, but I've always wanted to try it out. I've been on so many Reaper Kickstarters I need to burn through and paint what I have before I consider any new paints. Gonna try AV's Game Air models. Gotcha. Are you going to Origins? Currently, no. Don't have plans to go to Origins. Sam will be there, though. Remember those videos you did where you converted an Ambot into an Orc Warboss? Yes. I really like them, and I'm not so keen on Twitch streams, so I'd like to see stuff like that come back. Yeah, I've been thinking about that too. What did I call those? Hobby Progress vlogs. That's what I called them. I've been thinking about doing some of those as well. Again, didn't get crazy views, but they did fine, and they were okay. Yeah, I could see doing, especially it's a bit easier now because I have the Twitch setup. Like the video I did on Friday, it was very easy for me to use my same Twitch setup, which is the top-down camera with the good autofocus and all that jazz, and to be able to show you things that I'm doing and whatnot. Whereas back in the day, I had to set up a camera that I didn't just always have set up, right? And do all that kind of stuff to be able to film those pieces. I don't remember, now that I come to think of it, I don't think I actually painted in those videos, did I? I think I just was showed you and talked about what I did, but I don't think I actually painted in any of those videos. I should actually go back and watch them. That might be a good idea. But yeah, no, I could see doing some of that kind of stuff, the Hobby Progress vlog stuff again. I've been thinking about that. Let's see here. If I really, really feel the pull to play a World War II game, I have thousands worth of both the Axis and the Allies collectible miniature games. There you go. Zombies are tangential at best to a good zombie film. Yeah, I mean, really, if you think about I don't know, The Walking Dead, it's really about how the people who are now in this situation are acting towards each other. And in Dead Weight, that was the whole idea. The zombies they were called infected, but the infected were not the monsters. It was the people who were the monsters because they were, the way they were doing things to each other to survive and stuff like that. So it was pretty cool. What do you think about a 3D only show focusing on FDM and resin printing, like a how-to or tips and tricks? I mean, I'm going to have to, once soonish, after the launch of the new game and TMX and yada, 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 it'll be hopefully warm enough and I will be And there's a new company that's making a nice little heater that might be able to fit inside my printer to keep it warmer, which would be also useful too. But I'd probably put it in the enclosure, not in the printer. Anyway, I have the printer set up and things are ready. I just need to actually sit down and start learning how to do it. And I think that making some videos to help teach people the things that I'm learning, probably through trial and error to some degree, wouldn't be a bad series to do. The issue is, to some degree right now, is I have a good friend of mine who lives about 3 blocks that way, who has a whole bunch of printers and is kind of starting like a side business. So lately, when I've been like needing to get something printed, I just reach out to him and then send him some files and then PayPal him and then walk over to his house and pick it up when it's done. And so it's been actually sort of convenient, and for both of us. But, I have this stuff set up and everything, and I bought it, and I should probably make it go. So I'm going to be doing that sooner versus later. But yeah, that's, I hadn't figured out a good way to keep things warm in there over the winter, because our basement, like in the winter, our basement hovers between 57 degrees Fahrenheit and on a good day, 61, which from what I understand is a little low for what you want for 3D printing. So I'm trying to crack that nut again. I came across a heater designed for 3D printers, like enclosures and stuff like that. And it's got a thermostat built in and blah, blah, blah. And so I'm going to try to use something like that, which will help in there too. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah. Let's see here. Other smaller creators that you appreciate for some reason, not necessarily wargaming. Sure. I saw a TikTok from a creator making a tabletop hockey game, and I'm all in. Interesting. Like tabletop miniature hockey game? Weird. Leviathan launch weekend, live stream with Combat Patrol giveaway. I don't do a lot of giveaways. Yeah, never have. Leviathan launch weekend. Do we know when that is yet? Is it the last weekend in June? Is that, do we, I haven't, I guess I haven't paid close enough attention to know exactly when it is yet. My painting standard could be described as adequate. I think it's fine. I mean, people, that's nothing wrong with being adequate. I'm way behind. Are you going to Origins? I saw that one. I shared the Indominus box with a friend when COVID hit. He stopped the hobby, but he wants to pick it up again with 10th edition release. Hopefully they release Combat Patrol rules for Indominus. Yeah, I think they'd be dumb not to, honestly. Let's see here. There we go. Your top 10 Age of Sigmar factions to use to assemble a Warcry warband. Yeah, no. The initial part I was like, I don't really, but then when you said to make a warband for Warcry, okay, now I'm back on board. I get you. Yeah, because I really don't play Age of Sigmar these days, but yeah, no, I could see that. Yeah, that may be something to think about. Tom Johnson says, YouTube isn't the monster who only recommends Warhammer videos. Viewers are the monsters who only click on them. I mean, that's a short version and maybe a little, just a tiniest little bit surly version of what I was saying. But yes, that is definitely, you're not wrong. I'll never forget your video about stripping models that got blocked because the algorithm used another interpretation of those words. Yeah, no, yeah. I did a video about, it was called The Pitfalls of Stripping. And I was talking about how sometimes when you strip paint, it doesn't come off right and all that kind of stuff. And then it got demonetized because the algorithm thought it was about taking off your clothes for money, I assume, or whatever. And I was like, but then I clicked the little manual review button or whatever. And I was like, no, I'm talking about paint, not, and then, and they fixed it. So that was good. But that was a while ago. When people talk about the algorithm, I wonder how Steve 1989 MRE info got so big. I thought you made that up for a second, but I think you didn't. I know who you're talking about. Yeah. You're talking about military food pack. I think it's just like people are just curious sometimes. Like I've gone down rabbit holes and watched videos of people like refinishing, like, oh, there's a guy who, he doesn't talk the entire video. There's like captions sometimes, but it's like he takes apart like old rusted stuff and then cleans it all and puts it back together again. It makes it work or whatever. And it's like a 25, 30-minute video. And you're like, huh. There's videos of people who just hike They just set up a camera and then they like walk across and it's beautiful scenery and you just have this person kind of walking across it slowly. And then the next scene is them walking someplace else slowly. And there's no talking, millions and millions of views. It kind of depends on what people are interested in taking a look at. So yeah, I get it. How about dating tips for gamers? I'd have to talk to somebody about that. Yeah, I don't know. Silent Death is under Metal Express on Wargame Vault. No kidding. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, so then there's lots of rules there and stuff like that. James S., how you doing? True goobers know what you do with old sprues is that you blend them into small chunks and then you store them in boxes. I have a meat grinder that I have used that came with the house. Old-timey, probably from the 30s meat grinder that you clamp onto my workbench and then you put sprues in it and you crank this big thing and then you get like little parts which you then use as like rubble for terrain. It actually works quite well. An irregular series on indie skier. I don't know what indie skier is. What to do with old books? Yeah. There's a lot of old codexes out there, aren't there? Old spruce can be used as framework for ramshackle structures. Yeah, I made a bunch of like walkways for like kind of Necromunda style stuff, and I used a lot of honestly, what I used a lot of was basically pieces of sprue as like the framework, and then a lot of the flat areas are honestly like old gift cards and stuff like that I like cut and kind of scraped them and drilled some holes in them to look like bullet holes and stuff like that. And then when you prime it all over, it looks actually pretty good. I wonder how many popular videos end up preaching to the choir, and videos like Why I Like It end up having more impact and lower views, as in actually resulting in gamers trying something new. Well, that's the hope. I'm not completely all about the views, but you do have to pay attention to it if you, want to be able to, like I said, the algorithm allows you to reach more people by reaching more people. It's kind of self-propagating or whatever, but yeah. So that's something to think about as well. And then, of course, again, I am kind of working. This is at the very least for me one of my several part-time jobs now. So yeah, I do think about that as well. It's too bad they don't do well. I appreciate the Why I Like It shows. The first one did really well, and I think maybe because it was new, and then the other ones, like the last couple, have been like, but they haven't been as bad as the most recent video. That tutorial just recently was iffy. I don't know. I liked it a lot. I think, and a lot of people in the comments were like, "Oh, great, this is really good." But man, it just did not get views. I wonder how many. Oh, I read that one. A channel called Miniature Hobbyist has done a lot of videos making sprues into new stuff, including a way of melting sprues with acetone and molding the goo into new parts. That sounds super, well, it's dangerous. I mean, I'm not against the concept, but you have to be incredibly careful because like acetone is super flammable, really flammable. Yeah. What's in the bits box? Pick 5 or 6 things and make some terrain. Yeah. Have you actually written a channel mission statement? Could that make a good topic, or did you already do that? Technically, it is. What is it? It's in it. If you go to the YouTube channel, like youtube.com/tabletop minions, and then you go to the About tab, it's not a full-blown mission statement, but it's basically a channel about the miniature hobby and tabletop wargaming mostly, or something like that. But that's not exactly like. Yeah, I have not actually sat down and written but it's not a bad idea to maybe make some sort of video about that to some degree, because I do get people all the time that are like, well, this is all beginner stuff. And I'm always like, well, yeah, that's kind of what I'm trying to get people in the hobby. So yeah, no, I get that. But maybe I'm not making it clear. That's a good point. Indie game irregular series on which games are well suited for GW Mini reuse. I mean, honestly, you can use any miniature game. You can use GW Minis in any miniature game, and and vice versa. You can use non-GW Minis in any GW mini game. like if you're trying to get a little bit more WYSIWYG, I could see that being sort of useful as something or some sort of topic. Yeah. Like I did a video that did pretty well where I talked about, I finally figured out what I was going to do, and I have already to some degree, what I was going to do with the kill teams that I'm not using anymore because I don't like Kill Team 2021 in comparison to Kill Team 2018. I had 6 or 8 painted 2018 kill teams. And I was working on another one, and then they went to 2021, and then everything went. And so those lists basically all became illegal, and it was a whole thing, you know, like, and when I say illegal, I don't mean like the police are going to come, but like, you know, you can't use them in kill team anymore because you couldn't have 4 or 5 different unit types. You can have 2 or 1 if you play Space Marines mostly. Anyway, the idea was basically like, oh, well, these will just become Grimdark Future Firefight teams, which is what I've done with Astra Militarum, AdMech, a couple of different Space Marine groups, Necrons, and that's just the ones I've done so far. I don't know if I've done the Tyranids yet. I haven't. I don't think so. But yeah, so there's a lot of options, obviously, with that type of game. But there's other games too, for sure. I love painting minis wherever they come from. Yeah. Need to find a good source of skeletons for decorating bases. At stock exhaustion of the 3 Warhammer Regiment skeleton boxes, 20 back in the, I would probably tell you Wargames Atlantic. They've got pretty decent skeletons. If you can find them, there's an old company, I don't think they're around anymore, called Wargames Foundry. So you might be able to find them like on maybe eBay or someplace like that, but there was a Wargames Foundry that had a box of skeletons that they sold that were really scale appropriate. Also, they were terrible miniatures. Like there was a box of skeletons that if you were to try to put them together to make an actual skeleton that you would use in a game, they would have been astoundingly fragile because they were almost perfectly scaled, which meant they were real skinny because skeletons are kind of skinny as it turns out. So, they were not great as miniatures because they were incredibly difficult and fiddly to put together. But if you were like, I need some femurs and a rib cage and a skull to throw on the base of this miniature, this other model, they were perfect for that. But good luck finding them. They're kind of hard to find out there. But yeah, I think it was called Wargame Foundry or Wargames Foundry, and it was a box of skeletons. And I have a box somewhere in the basement that I've used in the past for that kind of stuff. But otherwise, if you can't find that, I would take a look probably at the skeletons in Wargames Atlantic. They do good stuff. Topic: cat pictures. That's kind of my Twitter sometimes lately. Too Fat Lardy says a new What a Cowboy Old West game based in part on What a Tanker. Yeah, for some reason I'm not interested in cowboys. I don't know why. I never have been. One of the more inspiring hobby books I once had was a black and white photos of built and painted Tamiya 1/35th scale military models. That's pretty cool. I really like the newest video for What It Matters. Well, I appreciate that. I do. And it's one of those where, like, as a creator, you'll put up a video and go, I think this is going to work. I think people are going to dig this. And then it doesn't happen and it gets terrible views and you're like, oh, bummer. And then there's other times when you're like, I don't know this video. I don't think this worked out. I think I screwed something up bad here. I don't feel good about it. And then that one goes nuts. And then you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. I've been doing it for 10 years. I have no clue. So I kind of thought that video was going to do better, but it did pretty poorly. But like I said, there were people, no one in the comments was like, this is dumb and you should feel bad. You know what I mean? Like people were like, oh, hey, thanks. It didn't get a lot of views. So, but the people who did watch it, they liked it and that's cool. But again, like I said, tutorials are hard. I was talking with Vince about that and Vince was like, hey, imagine being a channel that predominantly just does tutorials. I'm like, no, I get it. I do. But it's the same reason, like I said before, like I love to watch tutorials because I don't know. I just do. I watch tutorials all the time, even if I'm not like currently learning how. I don't need to know how to paint a power sword, for example, again. I still want to watch the video because sometimes there's something that's going to pop up and all of a sudden I'll be like, oh, I've never thought about doing it like that before. And it just sticks in my head and then it just becomes part of how I paint, hopefully. But I think a lot of people out there are like, I need to paint X. I need to find a video teaching me how to paint X. They don't, and they don't look for or don't watch tutorials until they need to. You know what I mean? And I think that's kind of the issue. But on the other hand, then hopefully over the long term, these videos then pick up steam, or not necessarily velocity steam, but they at least get more views. Whereas there are some videos you put out there, like no one's really watching the video I did about the Pariah Nexus kill team box and what a kind of a mess that was, right? People watched it initially, it did pretty well, boom. But then, 4 years later, people are like, I don't care, But the video about using how to build your own wet palette, that still does numbers for years and years and years, and it's been doing fine, so that's fun. How to write your own scenario, that is a black art, absolutely. Just wanted to say thank you for your content, encouragement to stop worrying about perfect box art and doing what the YouTube masters do instead of just putting some paint on the models. Putting paint on the models is the important thing, Travis. Absolutely. Glad to hear it. Big ass makeup brush specifics, meaning do you use different shapes of brush for different effects? What shapes are best? Yeah. How to kit bash easily? Yeah, I've been thinking about kit bash videos a little bit. Let's see here. The whole "they won't send people to your house" line became moot once Wizards of the Coast sent the Pinkertons to some dude's house. Well, that's the Pinkertons, and that's Wizards of the Coast. I never said that Wizards of the Coast wouldn't send the Pinkertons to your house. I mean, that's a totally different thing, Like GW is an English company, so I don't know who they would send. Dudes in like some sort of man-at-arms and like leather scale mail. I don't think that even is that a thing? Leather scale mail? I don't think that's a thing. Anyway, that'd be funny though. I think Eureka have some skeletons you can cut up. I don't think I only own like one set of Eureka miniatures. They're like metal guys, like army guys in like mop gear, which is like kind of NBC gear, biological, nuclear, chemical, protective gear. Is it Wargames Factory? Not Foundry. Okay, yeah, no, that's right. Those skellies are not being produced by Warlord Games. Oh, no kidding. Yeah, they're great for like having like, I need a bunch of bones and stuff on the base, but like I said, try and build one that's standing and holding a sword. You will be very unhappy eventually. They're tough to build. It's kind of like building those droids in the Star Wars Clone Wars sets. I watch tons of tutorials while paying half attention because there's so many things to learn I just didn't know I was looking for. Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of it is that you aren't primarily a tutorial channel. YouTube seems to reward doing something similar to what you found success in again and again. To some degree, yes. But the thing is that when you watch tutorial channels, depends on the tutorials and it depends on the channel, but there are certain tutorial channels that put out lots of tutorials but don't ever get like tons of views. And there are some tutorial channels that do well, but they are usually doing things that it's not just like, here's how you paint X. They're like, doing kind of things with the thumbnail and the title to like sort of trick you into go like, oh, am I doing this wrong? Or like they kind of use a lot of those YouTube tricks to get people involved. Yeah, but there are successful tutorial channels out there. Don't get me wrong, that are doing fine. And again, success is a completely differing. Like everyone's idea of what success is also a lot different too. So there's that as well. Let's see here. Pretty sure the Hasbro that sent the Pinkertons and Wizards of the Coast had to go along for the ride. Potato at this point, I suppose. It's kind of the same thing. Couldn't stand wearing mop gear. It sounds hot. It sounds like not like in a good way, but like in a real sweaty way. Yeah, absolutely. We're the mercenary knights of St. George, and that bloke is armed with a bolter. Not what you said. You're coming with us, you mug. James Workshop wants your thumbs. Oh no, not your thumbs. Well, folks, I appreciate it. It's 11 o'clock here in my neck of the woods, so I got to get ready, and we're going to go over to the in-laws for lunch, as we do. So thanks for the folks who had some topic ideas. Like I said, I'm going to go through the chat later on, and I'm going to go through and copy and paste and put them in and build a little document, and then I'll have that in my phone, and then hopefully we'll be some direct ideas or some ideas that spur other ideas and that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's useful and I appreciate it. Again, I'm not sure what's going on next week. I'll try to post about it in some places sooner versus later. I have to sneeze. Excuse me. But yeah, this time next week I'll be at TMX. So if you're coming to TMX, I hope to see you there. I mean, it's not very large, so it's unlikely that I will miss you. It's pretty small, but I think all but one of the classes are sold out for the painting classes on Saturday with Vince and Sam and John. So that's very cool. And with lots of different events going to be going on, all that kind of stuff. Now, whether we're going to have this next week or not, that's, like I said, what I'll be figuring out hopefully soon. But at the very least, I'll be putting out videos. The new game will come out very soon, not this Friday, but next Friday. And I'll be on Twitch doing that. So I want to say again, thanks for everybody for coming by and hanging out. And I hope you folks have a good rest of your weekend, unless you're over in Australia where it's already Monday. And I hope you have a good week then. And we'll